Okay, so today we're going to be talking about a specific exercise that we use on the clarinet to serve a couple of different functions. Um, Shorthand, we recall it as the 12th exercise. What that means is we're talking about the interval of a 12th, right? So we go up 12 notes in the major scale, makes the interval of the 12th. So if we're starting from C and we're talking about the key of C or the C major scale, we go up 12 notes from C. C up to D is 2, so C is 1. C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, C, the octave, is 8, D is 9. Let me come down a little bit so you can see. The next E is 10, F is 11, and G is 12. So we're talking about an octave from C up to C, and then another fifth up to G, right? Makes it 12, okay? So the reason why we're doing this is because it lays really easily on the clarinet. To jump that interval, all we have to do is add the octave key behind here, okay? So let's say we're playing low E, the bottom note of the clarinet, the lowest note that we can play, right? And if we add the octave key to that low E, all of a sudden we get B, right? But up an octave E and then the B above that, right? So we go up an octave to E, then we jump the fifth, but all that is done just by pushing down the thumb, okay? So what are the two things that this exercise improves? Our ability to reconcile in our mind the fact that we have two very similar fingerings that are two different notes, different names, and they're on different parts of the staff, okay? So if we're playing this fingering, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the left pinky here, that's going to give us low E, right? And then if we just add the octave key, we get that B, right? So we have to practice going back and forth playing the low E, then switching the B, and knowing in our mind that we're switching from the note E up to the B and then back down to the E. I can't sing that low. Anyways, so this is the point. So it's a mental exercise, right? We're training ourselves to know the difference between the sound of the low note and the sound of its 12th above it, even though the fingerings aren't really changing very much. It's just that octave key, okay? So the way that we practice that is by starting with low E and going E up to B and then back down to E. Then we go up a half step to F, and we do the same thing. Then F sharp. Then G. Okay? So there's the note and the theory side part of it. The other thing that this helps us get control over is our ability to switch our voicing, meaning the position of the back of our tongue. We can also think about it as what vowel shape we're making. If it's an E shape where the tongue is very high in the back of the throat, right, and arched. If it's an Ah shape where the tongue is more flat and lower, or an O shape where it's a little bit curled, a little lower in the middle and higher on the edges, right? All these positions of the tongue will give us different results depending on where we are on the horn. In general, on the clarinet, we want to have a high tongue position, so we want to be thinking E for most of the time. When we say E, right, we notice that the edges of the tongue press up against the inner edges of the top molars, okay? There's a point of stasis there so the tongue will not move. We can kind of push our tongue into those top molars to create some stability there so that it won't move. Okay, we don't want the tongue to move too much, only in the front for articulation. We don't want it to move in the back at all. Right? So in general, we're going to have this E, but it's going to it's going to move up and down a little bit. So a little bit of a lower voicing for low notes and a bit of a higher voicing for high notes. But in general, we want to think E position. Okay? So this is a big leap, getting back to this idea of the 12th. Right? A very low note to not so low of a note is a big leap, and we have to adjust accordingly here. We can't just push the octave key. Some change will happen, but it may not be in tune. Right? In order to get these notes in tune, I recommend doing this with the tuner, by the way. You sit with the tuner, you play the low note, you get it in tune. You push the octave key. If the note comes out, the 12th above it, which it should, then we look to see if that note is in tune. And if it is, then we're doing okay. Move on to the next set. Okay? But if it's not, then we have to make some adjustments back here with the voicing in the back of the throat. Okay? So this 12th exercise, we will practice slurring it up and down with the tuner from low E up to middle B, back to low E up to middle B. Then we move up a half step. F up to C and back down to F. Then F sharp up to C sharp, back down to F sharp. Then G up to D. G sharp up to D sharp, A up to E, B flat up to F, B up to F sharp, and so on, right? All we're doing is taking a fingering that we know and adding the octave key and changing it into another fingering that we know, just of a note of the difference of a different name, okay? So we're working on our ability to solidify the difference in note name, even though we have similar fingerings, but in the different octaves, the low octave and the second octave of the clarinet, and we're also solidifying our ability to control the response of these notes to come out in tune with the voicing in the back of the throat. Okay? So practice is slow with the tuner, slurred. Don't worry about articulation at all. Just try and get the notes to come out clear and in tune the best that you can. Good luck.